Welcome to Next Level Play Therapy, a weekly podcast dedicated to supporting the next generation of child and adolescent therapists to provide exceptional play therapy services. We'll explore all things play therapy to elevate your work with children and adolescents using the therapeutic powers of play. I'll discuss practical tips and ideas so you can provide a transformative experience for your young clients and make a real difference in their lives. So get ready to take your play therapy skills to the next level and make a lasting impact in the lives of children, adolescents, and families. Hey there! Welcome to this week's episode of Next Level Play Therapy. And today we're going to be talking about what do you do if you feel lost and you are not sure how to help your client or what's going on. You're feeling confused, probably a little overwhelmed and not sure what to do. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, using a neuroscience and attachment lens as your roadmap to guide you through that play therapy process, especially when you're working with traumatized children and adolescents. And so we're going to be talking about how to use play therapy and integrate that neuroscience and attachment lens in there. And why exactly does that matter? Like, why do you need a roadmap, so to speak, in order to help you get the best results possible, excuse me, for your child and adolescent clients who've experienced trauma? So let's get started for today. Full disclosure, we had quite a few little technical snafus, and I'm looking at the Instagram because I stream from my Instagram on my phone, and it's just such an odd, today's just an odd day. Like, it's already getting started super odd. I'm looking at my phone with the Instagram live screen, and I'm like, it's so fuzzy. It's so weird. I don't know what's going on today in the internet world, but there's some gremlins happening. And I'm a little befuddled. So now that I got that out of the way, I'll focus. So if you're watching live on that, so we had some snafus with LinkedIn. We had to get that started over. So I'm streaming also live on YouTube and Instagram, but my Instagram screen looks really weird. So we'll find out if I'm actually streaming live. So if you're on Instagram and you're watching, post in the comments so I know we're actually live. And for all of you, if you're watching live, go ahead and post in the comments. I would love to see who's here. What are your questions? What are your thoughts? Go ahead and post in the comments, even if you're watching on the replay, because the replays will automatically generate on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. For those of you listening to the podcast, excuse me, I would love to hear your feedback as well. Feel free to reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me a message, and let's get started for today. So the first thing to keep in mind, so here's the thing. One of the reasons that I thought today's topic would be useful is because there's one thing I keep hearing all the time when I'm talking to people who are scheduling the 30-minute video calls with me for either my Play Therapy Academy program or Elevation Circle to see which one's a good fit. And one of the things that I hear all the time is that you probably have taken lots of different trainings, and then there's a lot of great ideas in these trainings, but then you feel lost and you're not sure how to make them all work together. And so then that results in feeling a little bit lost and not sure what to do in your sessions, or maybe you're kind of not sure what stage of play therapy you're in, or how to tell if your clients are even making any progress. And this is why it's really important to think about what play therapy model are you using. This is where people tend to get stuck, because even if you're using an integrative play therapy model, your theory models that you learned are still theory based, and they're going to you're going to have an idea of how your clients are making progress, what to look for. And so even when you're blending models, it's important to think about that theoretical model and how do you know if change is occurring. And so, sorry, I got a little stuck in my throat today. So the key to your success, even when you're blending your play therapy theoretical models, the key to your success is thinking about what your theory models say to do in the sessions. How do they say to do it? When do they say to do it? That's why your theory model is really, really important. So even if you're taking a lot of different trainings, like you might get some great ideas, maybe some great strategies, and maybe it's more strategy based, but it's not necessarily grounded in any kind of theoretical model, then that's typically where people get lost. And the way that I think about play therapy and theoretical models, I love using a neuroscience and attachment lens. Like I look at everything through a neuroscience and attachment lens. And then that's going to ground, how am I making sense of what change looks like? So if I'm looking at trauma, and I'm working with clients who have who've experienced trauma, then I'm going to be thinking about how trauma impacts the body and how trauma impacts how I make sense of the world through that attachment lens. So is the world safe? Am I safe? And I'm thinking about how the brain is predictive in nature. And I'm thinking about that brain-body connection. So those somatic aspects of how the brain and the body work together. The brain and the body are taking in information. Especially when you're talking about trauma, you really want to think about the sensory aspects of that traumatic experience and how that got stored away in the brain. And that's going to influence how you're making sense of what's going on with your client. And that's going to guide your decision making. And then you're also thinking about what treatment goals do you have in place. So like, what is that client? How will your treatment goals are basically how you know when your clients are better. And so if you've identified those treatment goals and objectives and you've kind of clarified those, then that's going to help you figure out if you're making progress. And because treatment goals are kind of a work in progress, I think we update and change periodically throughout the process. Having those conversations with your clients and their caregivers, because we work with children and adolescents, that's going to help you make sure you're on the right track. So how do you know if you're getting better? If your clients are getting better? Well, you're thinking about the impact of trauma and the impact of trauma from an attachment lens, as well as that neuroscience lens. You're thinking about their behavior. going to the root of it. And what's at the root of the behavior? Well, it's probably trauma. What kind of trauma did they experience? How did they experience it? How did they make sense of it? How did they respond? How did their caregivers respond? You're looking at all of those things. And then that neuroscience and attachment lens is going to kind of guide your thinking. The other thing that you're thinking about is, what is your play therapy model? Because your you can always, like, I think you can ground attachment and neuroscience, that lens, and what we're learning about attachment and neuroscience from the research, and we can ground that in our play therapy model and kind of integrate them that way. And so let's say you're a play therapist and you were trained to use child-centered play therapy. You can still look at that presenting issue, like trauma, through your child-centered play therapy lens, and also from a neuroscience and attachment lens. You can blend those in together. Your play therapy model, child-centered play therapy, is going to help you understand what to do in the session, when to do it, and how to do it. Like in child-centered play therapy, you're going to be tracking in a specific way, and you're not going to be leading. You're not going to be asking questions. But let's say you're using an Adlerian play therapy theoretical model, and you're blending in neuroscience and attachment to understand how that trauma is impacting your client, and you're blending that with your Adlerian lens. And then you're going to follow that Adlerian play therapy process, and Adlerian play therapy is going to influence what you do, how you do it, and when you do it in the play therapy process. And then you're going to be looking at where they are, where your client is in that stage of change. So your theory model makes sense of how you make sense of the process or the problem. So my default would be neuroscience and attachment. And so I look at everything from a neuroscience and attachment lens, and I blend that with my theoretical model. And so let's say you're using EMDR, and you're blending EMDR, and you're using it in play therapy. Well, EMDR is going to look different with an adult versus with a child in many different ways, but there's still going to be some guiding principles about what you do. Or let's say you have done training in internal family systems, and now you're blending that into play therapy. So you're taking that your play therapy model. Let's say you're using Gestalt play therapy, which is kind of my new obsession. And you're blending some EMDR in there with maybe some parts work in your Gestalt play therapy model. You're kind of using that Gestalt model plus what IFS says is how you identify parts and how you talk about parts. And then EMDR is when you get to the trauma memories, it's going to influence what you do and how are you processing those trauma memories. The trauma model that I learned decades ago at this point in time is kind of similar to many of the trauma models. And what I mean by that is there's going to be a safety, there's aspect in the very beginning, establishing safety and rapport. You're going to do a little psychoeducation about trauma. And then you're going to be you're going to be beginning that slow, titrated exposure therapy to that traumatic memory. And your play therapy model or your trauma model is going to influence how you do that. And then you're going to be working through those trauma memories. And then there's going to be some post-traumatic growth component to that trauma model. So So your model really does influence what you do in the sessions and how you do it. And here's the thing that I find, it's really hard to do this by yourself, I think, especially when you're beginning. But I've been doing this for a long time and I still use support from people. So, um, like, I think being part of a community is really, really important. When we're in Play Therapy Academy, one of the things that we're doing, especially when we're working, not especially, but when you're trying to figure out what to do and how to make sense of what's going on, in Play Therapy Academy, we'll walk through the case conceptualization. We'll walk through how are you applying your play therapy model? How are you tracking? How are you identifying themes? So all those core competencies of play therapy, and how are you implementing your play therapy model? So we do a lot of staffing. And one of the things that I found really useful about Play Therapy Academy and also Elevation Circle. So Elevation Circle is more, it's probably the best way to describe it would be probably more of a generalized support rather than a deep dive into skill building. So in Elevation Circle and Play Therapy Academy, both of those have probably the strongest component is the group aspect, meaning there's a community of play therapists who get it, that can help you figure out how to help your client. And in Play Therapy Academy, we do a deeper dive. We meet more often. It's a much smaller group. And I only have openings when somebody leaves. And so I have a few openings now. I'll talk a little bit about that at the end if you want to schedule a 30-minute meeting with me to see if Play Therapy Academy would be a good fit for you, or if maybe Elevation Circle that's a better fit for you now. In Elevation Circle, we do the consultation. Sometimes we do mini trainings. Like last weekend, we did a mini training on Gestalt play therapy. We had somebody come in and talk about Gestalt play therapy. Sometimes we do case consultation in there. We have group support, a book club in there. So when we're thinking about using play therapy and your play therapy model is your GPS, it's important to know your theoretical model, but having support to know how to apply it. And if you're using an integrative model, how are you integrating that? Having a community of support to help you do that, I find is really, really important. In fact, I think that's kind of the secret ingredient, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about because I'm skipping around here. I'm still a little befuddled from all my pre-live stream, pre-recording, I'll call them little gremlins that were going on. So when you're using a neuroscience and attachment theory model, one of the things I think that it is useful to do that, because I think it helps you really figure out what is going on underneath those behaviors with your client. So especially when I think especially when you're working with children who've experienced trauma and some pretty significant attachment wounds, I think it also is helpful when you're talking about anxiety and some of those other things, because it kind of activates that threat response system, and the brain is kind of stuck in a predictive loop of what I call danger, danger, Will Robin. If you've ever seen that Lost in Space, I grew up with Lost in Space, and there's that little robot. Whenever there was danger, he would fling his arms and all his lights would go off, and he would say, danger, 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 Will Robinson. And Will Robinson was one of the characters. I feel like our brain does that when it's kind of stuck in that threat detection loop of where our brain's always kind of signaling danger, danger. danger. And all our little neurocircuits are going a little haywire, sending energy and responses to respond to a threat that's not actually a threat, but our brain is saying it's a threat. And to me, when we're thinking about working with traumatized children and adolescents, I think, regardless of what theoretical, seminal and historical play therapy model that you're using, like child-centered play therapy or Adlerian play therapy or Gestalt play therapy, I think you can also think about that from a neuroscience and attachment lens and add that layer in there. Because I think understanding how the brain and the body work is going to help you figure out what to do in the sessions. And that's why we want to focus on looking at the deeper roots of the problem and not just on the behaviors. That's one of the things that I find happens a lot. So I also have a training coming up. If you're interested, registration closes tomorrow. The training is on Saturday. It's called Healing Trauma Through Play Therapy, a Neuroscience and Attachment Approach. And so one of the things that I find people through Play Therapy Academy, Elevation Circle, and the trainings, one of the things, and when I talk to people when they schedule the 30-minute videos, one of the video calls with me to find out if Play Therapy Academy is a good fit or if Elevation Circle is a better fit. One of the things I hear a lot is that they're not sure what to do in session and they're kind of focusing on the behaviors and not going to the root of the problem. And so your theory model is going to influence how you make sense of what is going on at the root of the problem. What are the patterns that are sustaining it? And so that's one of the reasons you want to make sure that you're thinking about what is your theory model, because it's going to influence how you make sense of the problem. And how you make sense of the problem is going to influence what you do to help your client solve their problem or resolve their problem or get better or heal, however you want to say it. But your theory model is going to influence how that works. And it's first and foremost going to influence how are you making sense of what's going on. And then it's going to guide you in your decision making about what to do. And again, to me, the secret ingredient of all of this, is your play therapy community. I've talked to so many play therapists who say they're the only play therapists in their agency, or maybe they're in private practice and they don't have access to other play therapy support. But it can feel really lonely and isolating because you don't have anyone who understands play therapy to bounce ideas off of, to figure out where you might be stuck and how to get unstuck, get ideas for strategies to use. So I think it's important to be grounded in a theory model, because your theory model influences how you make sense of what the problem is, and then influences what are you going to do about it, your treatment planning, basically. But the other thing that I think is equally important, and I'm finding that play therapists are really feeling isolated and alone, burned out, overwhelmed, tired, second guessing whether they made the right decision for their career, or if they were cut out to be a play therapist, maybe they're not very good. The likelihood that you're a terrible play therapist is not very high. The problem is more likely that you need support in knowing how to make sense of what's going on and how to help your clients. And when it comes to trauma, I think there's even an extra layer of concern that a lot of play therapists experience, which is I don't want to make it worse. I don't want to, what do I do if they get triggered? Questions I get asked all the time, or what happens if if something happens in there and their trauma gets triggered and they start acting out their trauma in the session, or maybe they dissociate in the session. And to me, that's where your play therapy model is going to be your guide. It's going to help you know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. And having a community of support around you to be able to help you out, to get ideas and figure out what's going on, make you feel like you're not alone, and then get support that you're probably not a horrible play therapist like you think you are. That to me is where having a play therapy community is a game changer. And that's what I've found. I've been running Play Therapy Academy probably for probably 6 years now. I've done supervision before for about 15 years, but I kind of created Play Therapy Academy to provide a lot of support for people who wanted to learn how to use play therapy with confidence and feel like they know what they're doing. And then last year, a little over a year ago, I launched Play Therapy Elevation Circle, because what I found was not everybody needed or wanted or was ready for the higher level of support with Play Therapy Academy, and they still needed some support. They needed some play therapists who get it and understand, and so that when they're trying to get help from their colleagues, they don't have to explain why play therapy actually does work and feel like they're justifying play therapy rather than getting the support that they need. And so that's why I launched Elevation Circle. And then, so the other thing, and that was a little over a year ago. And one of the things, because I believe so strongly in community, and I've seen how powerful it is in Elevation Circle and Play Therapy Academy. One of the things that I've been doing is any of the trainings that I've been doing, like I have one coming up on Saturday, June 6th, called Healing Trauma Through Play Therapy, a Neuroscience and Attachment Approach. So in that model, in the training, I'm going to be going through the neuroscience and attachment to help understand and guide your clinical decision making and your thinking about what's going on with your traumatized client. So we're going to use that theoretical lens to make sense of what's going on. And then I'm going to walk you through how to use a trauma-informed approach. It's an integrative play therapy approach. And so I'll kind of walk through what theoretical models we're integrating in there, and then walk you through each stage of that framework, so you know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it in each stage, and how to make sense if there's any, if your clients are making progress through that process. And once, in addition to the training, you're going to have access to 30 days of 60 days of Elevation Circle as part of your registration, so that after the training, you still can get access to support, and you won't have to feel like you're doing it alone. Because what I found is, after the training ends, we're really motivated, we're super excited, and then we sit in front of our clients, and then something happens and we're like, oh, we didn't talk about this in the training. I'm not exactly sure what to do here. So in my mind, giving you access to 60 days of Elevation Circle gives you some additional support, so you don't have to do it alone. You can stay if you want to stay in there, and I hope people stay. I really think it's a great support. We have a lot of amazing conversations in there, in both either Play Therapy Academy or Elevation Circle, your registration will include access, 60 days of access for new members. If you're not already in Elevation Circle, then you have 60 days of access for that. So let me do a quick recap for today. So today we're talking about a trauma roadmap using neuroscience and attachment in play therapy. The first thing you want to think about is if you've taken play therapy training after play therapy training and you've gotten lots of great ideas and you're struggling to know how to pull it all together to help your traumatized clients, then you're likely struggling with too much information and not enough understanding of how to bring that all together into a strategic approach that's going to make a difference for your clients. So your theory model is your GPS that helps you make sense of what is going on with your clients at the root of the problem, what are sustaining it. And when you're using a neuroscience and attachment lens, then that is going to influence how you make sense of what the problem is and why it's happening and what are the patterns sustaining it. And then what are you going to do to resolve that? Like what are you going to do in your sessions? When are you going to do it? And how are you going to do it? And that's going to influence your decision making. So even if you're using an integrated model, you're blending together several theory models, then you're thinking about the framework that you're going to use with that blended integrative approach. How are you making sense of what the problem is? So you still need a framework for guiding you through that process. And then being a play therapist can feel very isolating because oftentimes you are the only play therapist in your community or in your agency, or maybe you're in private practice. I remember when I was just getting started years and years ago, I've always used support because I'm a firm believer that it's impossible to do this job, to be a play therapist on your own. And I just remember I was in a consultation group, but it was mostly people who were not, I was the only play therapist, to be honest. And these were amazing women and they gave me great ideas, but they did not understand play therapy. And so in order to really hone my play therapy skills, I actually had to get that support elsewhere because I felt like I was having to explain what play therapy is. And I can't tell you how many times I talk to people who even are in with like a practice that's for kids, but there's nobody trained in play therapy, that they're often finding that they get questioned or they get looked like, why aren't you using a directive model? Or look, just these are great worksheets. Pull these out. I personally think I'm allergic to worksheets. I'll use them occasionally here and there, but I use them more to guide me because I think as a play therapist, we can move the needle faster by using play to help our young clients heal. And so to me, being part of a play therapy community is the secret ingredient for success. So you don't have to feel like you're alone. You don't start feeling burned out and overwhelmed, and you kind of stop second guessing all of your decisions because you have support to help you know what's going on and help get you on the right track to help your clients. So that is it for today. If you're interested, I do have this training coming up, Healing Trauma Through Play Therapy and Neuroscience and Attachment Approach. If you're interested in the training, registration closes tomorrow, so you'll want to sign up soon. And you can pop over to my website at rhplaytherapytraining.com. That's rhplaytherapytraining.com. Pop over to the training courses page, look for the live trainings. You can register for the in-person training option, which will be in St. George, Utah, which is absolutely beautiful. Or you can register for the virtual option and attend virtually the training on Saturday, on June 6th. If that doesn't work for you, or maybe the time zone is not your friend, then we will have a recorded option. So you can register for the recorded option. And then about 7 to 10 days after the training, so about 7 to 10 days after June 6th, we'll take the recordings will be available. So what we're going to do is I'm going to record the training on June 6th because it has all of the updated information. I went through and updated all the neuroscience and attachment information in light of some more information that's come out this year that helped to fine tune and better understand trauma. And so I went through and updated all of my slides about the neuroscience and attachment part to make sure that the most recent information is in there. So for the recorded option, what's going to happen is after June 6th, we'll take the video recording of the training. We'll kind of chop it up into smaller video segments and put it in different modules. It'll be the whole entire training, just more in bite-sized segments. You can take it in your own time zone when it's convenient for you. And so if the recorded option works better, then you can sign up for the recorded option. But registration for all of those is going to close on Thursday, tomorrow, June 4th. So you'll want to sign up for that soon. All three of those options give you 60 days access to Play Therapy Elevation Circle. If you have any questions about it, please feel free to reach out to me, email me, message me, and I will see you next week. Bye for now. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Next Level Play Therapy. I hope you found the discussion valuable and gained new insights and ideas to support your work helping children, adolescents, and families heal. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Your feedback helps to improve and reach more people who can benefit from this information. Remember, play therapy is a powerful tool for healing and growth. Whether you're a new play therapist or experienced, I encourage you to continue your learning journey to unlock the potential of play in your own work and relationships. If you have any questions or topic suggestions for future episodes, I'd love to hear from you. Connect with me on social media and visit my website at Renewing Hearts Play Therapy Training to stay updated on upcoming episodes, trainings, and resources. Thank you once again for listening to Next Level Play Therapy. Until next time, keep playing, learning, and growing.